Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Nazca Water System, the real reason they drew the lines. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. The Nazca Lines, the massive geoglyphs etched into a Peruvian plateau, receive an average of less than 4 millimeters of rain per year. That single fact reframes everything. The creators of these enormous drawings did not die of thirst. They built one of the most sophisticated underground water management systems in the ancient Americas, a network of spiral-topped aqueducts called puquios, and they survived for 1,000 years in one of the most arid environments on Earth. For decades, the lines were explained as astronomical calendars, alien landing strips, ceremonial pathways. The water was ignored. Then in the 1990s, geoscientist David Johnson began overlaying the geoglyphs onto hydrogeological maps of the Nazca Plateau and found something unexpected. Some of the lines correlate with the paths of underground water. In 2016, Rosa Lasaponara of the Italian Space Agency published a satellite analysis that mapped the Puquio aqueduct network across the entire plateau for the first time, revealing a system far larger and more engineered than anyone had realized. The spiral holes, ojos, are not random features. They are positioned to use prevailing winds to push water through underground channels without pumps. The Nazca people may have drawn the lines to mark what mattered most, where to find water in a desert that tried to kill them every day. But if the lines are a water map, why are some of them shaped like hummingbirds? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The sky was the original clock, calendar, and map. Before writing, before money, before cities, human beings looked up and organized their lives around what they saw. The position of the sun at solstice told them when to plant and when to harvest. The rising of specific stars marked the seasons. The phases of the moon governed ceremonial calendars in cultures from Ireland to India. Our ancestors were not casual observers of the night sky. They were meticulous, obsessive, and precise in a way that rivals modern astronomical science. This precision is encoded in stone at sites around the world. Newgrange in Ireland is aligned so precisely that sunlight enters its inner chamber only during the 5 days around the winter solstice, and it has done so every year for more than 5,000 years. The pyramids of Giza are oriented to true north with an accuracy of 0.05 degrees. Stonehenge tracks both the midsummer sunrise and the midwinter sunset, as well as the 18-6-year lunar cycle. These alignments are not accidental. They were engineered with mathematical precision by cultures we have long underestimated. What drove this obsession with celestial mechanics? Partly practical. Agriculture depends on knowing the seasons, but partly something more profound. Ancient cultures believed the sky was alive, that the movements of stars and planets determined the fates of kingdoms and harvests. In this worldview, encoding celestial cycles into permanent stone was not merely useful but sacred. The great monuments of the ancient world are, among other things, the most durable clocks ever built. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the Nazca Water System. The real reason they drew the lines is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Nazca Lines, etched into the Nazca Plateau of southern Peru, were created between approximately 100 BC and 800 AD by the Nazca civilization. Covering an area of around 1,000 square kilometers, the geoglyphs include geometric lines, trapezoids, spirals, and zoomorphic figures, among them a spider, a hummingbird, and a monkey. They were made by removing reddish surface stones to expose the pale yellow-gray ground beneath. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen. Instruments malfunction. Researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the Nazca civilization inhabited one of the most arid environments on Earth. The Nazca Plateau receives an average annual rainfall of less than 4 millimeters, comparable to portions of the Atacama Desert. Without a reliable water source, organized settlement on the plateau would have been impossible. The Nazca peoples sustained occupation for approximately 1,000 years in this near-waterless environment is direct evidence of sophisticated water management capability that long predates modern understanding of the region. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the puquios, from the Quechua word puquio, are a network of underground aqueducts and spiral access holes, ojos, on the Nazca Plateau. Approximately 36 puquios have been identified. The aqueducts channel groundwater from the Andean foothills along underground paths, preventing evaporation in the intense desert sun. The ojos are funnel-shaped holes in the ground that allow maintenance access and, significantly, allow prevailing winds to push water through the underground channels. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Rosa Lasaponara of the Italian Space Agency published a 2016 satellite study that mapped the Puquio aqueduct network across the Nazca Plateau for the first time from orbital imagery. The study, published in the Journal of Cultural Heritage, revealed that the puquios are arranged in a systematic network spanning the plateau, far more extensive than ground surveys had indicated. The analysis also confirmed the passive hydraulic function of the spiral ojos. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of David Johnson, a geoscientist who began working on the Nazca Plateau in the 1990s, proposed the hydraulic hypothesis that some of the Nazca geoglyphs, including straight lines and trapezoidal figures, served as maps or markers indicating the paths of underground water flows. Johnson overlaid line orientations on hydrogeological maps of the plateau and found correlations between some linear features and subsurface aquifer locations, though this correlation remains contested among archaeologists. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: the spiral access holes in the puquio system, called ojos, are engineered to exploit the prevailing winds of the Nazca Plateau. Their funnel-shaped construction channels wind into the underground aqueduct passages, creating air pressure that moves water through the system without mechanical pumps. This passive hydraulic mechanism allowed the Nazca to distribute water across the plateau year-round, maintaining agriculture and settlement in a region that receives virtually no rainfall. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Nazca Water System, the real reason they drew the lines. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that David Johnson's hydraulic hypothesis. The geoglyphs served as a landscape-scale map of underground water flows, with lines indicating aquifer paths that the Nazca detected through systematic environmental observation. Proponent: David Johnson, Geological Survey Work, 1990s-2000s. Main objection: the correlation between lines and aquifers is not universal. Many lines do not align with subsurface water, and the animal-shaped geoglyphs are difficult to explain as hydrological markers. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the lines served ritual and ceremonial purposes connected to water deities and fertility cults. The Nazca performed processions along them as offerings to mountain gods who controlled water. Proponent: Johann Reinhard, anthropologist, 1985, and subsequent ritual landscape researchers. Main objection: ritual and practical explanations are not mutually exclusive. The same lines could serve both functions, and no written Nazca records exist to confirm ritual intent. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Rosa Lasaponara's 2016 satellite analysis demonstrates that the puquio system is itself the primary technological achievement, a sophisticated hydraulic engineering network independent of the geoglyphs. The lines and the puquios were constructed by the same culture for related but distinct purposes. Main objection: Lasaponara's paper focuses on the puquios rather than the lines, so the relationship between the two systems remains interpretive rather than demonstrably proven. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question, is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Nazca Water System, the real reason they drew the lines, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Lasaponara's 2016 satellite analysis, published in the Journal of Cultural Heritage, confirmed that the puquios are arranged in a systematic network spanning the entire Nazca Plateau, not random isolated features as previously assumed. The orbital mapping revealed interconnections between aqueduct segments invisible from the ground. Several spiral ojos are positioned at topographic locations that concentrate prevailing plateau winds, directly supporting the passive hydraulic mechanism and demonstrating deliberate large-scale engineering. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented Johnson's overlay of geoglyph orientations onto hydrogeological survey maps of the Nazca Plateau identified correlations between some linear features and subsurface water-bearing geological formations. While not universal, these correlations are statistically significant enough that some researchers have accepted a water mapping function for at least a subset of lines. The Nazca's demonstrated ability to locate groundwater, evidenced by the puquios, confirms they possess the knowledge to produce such a map. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. Question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed radiocarbon dating of organic material extracted from puquio construction contexts places the system's construction between approximately 400 BC and 1500 AD, with initial phases contemporaneous with the geoglyph-making period. The overlap in dates means that the same Nazca population that drew the lines was also engineering the puquio system. A population capable of large-scale water engineering evidenced by the puquios had clear practical motivation to create landscape markers indicating water locations. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Nazca Water System, the real reason they drew the lines. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Lasaponara's 2016 satellite study is the most comprehensive analysis of the puquio system published to date. Notably, some sections of the puquio aqueducts remain functional, carrying water in the 21st century, over 2,000 years after initial construction. The Nazca Lines and surrounding landscape hold UNESCO World Heritage status, and ongoing LIDAR surveys continue to identify new geoglyphs and landscape features. The hydraulic hypothesis has added a practical engineering dimension to Nazca geoglyph research, alongside traditional ritual and astronomical interpretations, shifting academic consensus toward a multi-purpose explanation. The Nazca civilization's water engineering is now recognized as one of the most sophisticated pre-Columbian achievements in the Americas. The puquio system demonstrates that ancient engineering can solve problems that modern infrastructure still struggles to address in arid regions. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Nazca Water System, the real reason they drew the lines, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Nazca Lines ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.